Well, first of all, good evening. Thank you for coming to this informational meeting. Hopefully, you'll see, have a better understanding of the problem that we have here in Mayville, of the I&I problem, its inflow and infiltration into our collection system. There's going to be a lot of information here tonight for you to digest. Many of you have not heard before, haven't realized, so hopefully you'll gain something from this, and then maybe, just maybe, you might have a different perspective of what was passed by the commission and then ultimately passed by the council in this new ordinance. So, let's see, at this time I just want to introduce everybody that's here tonight. Ron Wellner is the City of Mayville Utility Director. Bert Buschke is the Water and Wastewater Commission President. From MSA Professional Services, we have Tom Fitzwilliams and Joe DeYoung from MSA. Then we have Mark Gruber from Campbell Sport. He's the Utility Director there. Chad Gunther from Town and Country. Pat Wunsch from Munson Brothers, and Scott Lammers from Scott Lammers Construction. So to introduce this whole subject, I did a lot of research, and I found on YouTube a video that will introduce the subject tonight, and it's from Delaware County in Delaware, so obviously it's out east. It's a little bit different. Their plant is bigger. It's a multi-community wastewater facility, but they're talking about I&I, and it explains it very well with a lot of nice graphics. So at this time, I'm gonna go ahead and start playing that.
Delaware County, a great place to live, work, and raise a family. Delaware County is also home to picturesque waterways that provide recreation, increase quality of life, and enhance property value. Keeping these streams and rivers clean is a priority for Delaware County residents, elected officials, and DELCORA, the Delaware County Regional Water Quality Control Authority. Every day, DELCORA safely and effectively collects, conveys, and treats over 70 million gallons of residential, commercial, and industrial wastewater. Property owners also play an important role in keeping Delaware County waters clean. It's their responsibility to maintain private sewer lateral lines.
A lateral is the first connection to the sewer system. It is the part that is owned by the homeowner. Specifically, it's the part that goes from the house, usually in the basement, out to the line in the middle of the street.
Many aging residential lateral lines are now past their service life, often leading to infiltration and inflow, or I&I. Infiltration occurs when rainwater drips into the soil, entering sewer laterals through cracked and collapsed pipes, pipe joint failure, and tree root intrusion. Inflow occurs when rainwater enters the sewer lateral from directly connected downspouts and drains. The result is high flows of non-sewage being unnecessarily treated at wastewater treatment facilities. Some cities estimate that as much as 60% of the water overfilling their systems comes from sewer laterals. In 2009, it is estimated that eastern Delaware County paid $7 million to treat clear water which had entered the sewer system. This clear water overburdens the system and raises sewer fees.
People hear all the time about our aging infrastructure, and basically homes are no different. There's your sewer pipes, all your plumbing pipes, they're all aging, and they're all going to need some type of attention to renew them.
Additionally, homeowners sometimes have downspouts and sump pumps tied directly to laterals, causing clean water to enter the sewer system and require treatment and higher sewer fees.
It's very common for people to take their sump pumps and attach them to their lateral and in turn our sanitary sewer systems. So right off the bat, being we're paying for flow, it's metered, they're adding a major additional cost to the taxpayers.
When a system is overloaded with clean water, in addition to normal sewage flows, the system can exceed capacity, leading to a sanitary sewer overflow, or SSO. Uncontrolled SSOs can back up into basements or can be discharged through manholes into streets and nearby waterways. If high flows cause a treatment facility to exceed capacity, raw sewage may even be discharged directly to streams and rivers.
As a manager, there's really nothing worse than getting the call about an overflow. It means that you're going to go out there and see what you don't want to see, which is sewage in a yard, on a street, and it's just really messy and really ugly, and there's nothing positive that comes out of that. Obviously a public health hazard and a tremendous problem for our environment if it makes it to our creeks and streams.
The county takes this issue very seriously. We're interested in maintaining a clean and green environment for all of our county residents. It's important for the homeowner to understand how that lateral and any deficiencies in it can contribute to sanitary sewer overflow, and also what they might be able to do to eliminate that inflow and infiltration in that line.
Lateral lines that let clean water into the sewer system can be identified using a number of contractor-provided inspection techniques, including smoke testing, dye testing, and CCTV video inspection. Inspection costs are the responsibility of the property owner. Once a faulty lateral line or source of inflow is identified, the next step is repair. A variety of techniques are available to repair damaged lines. The traditional method, open-cut excavation, requires materials to be removed above and around the faulty pipe for removal and replacement. There are a number of options available that require less excavation, including slip lining, pipe bursting, and cured-in-place pipe, or CIPP. During slip lining, a cable pulls a new, flexible, smaller diameter liner pipe through the existing faulty pipe section.
Pipe bursting is a similar process to slip lining, except what happens is you pull a metal ram through the existing pipe. It fractures the existing pipe, and then it pulls a new piece of pipe through it, and then you're left with a new pipe.
For a cured-in-place pipe, an epoxy resin-coated fabric tube is turned inside out while being pulled through the old pipe. The new liner pipe is kept pressurized for several hours until the epoxy bonds with the old pipe. Downspouts and sump pumps connected to laterals can also be ecologically remedied through the use of rain barrels and rain gardens, which effectively recharge groundwater aquifers. As a property owner, it's your responsibility to inspect, maintain, and repair your sewer lateral to help keep sewer fees low and prevent a sewage backup in your basement or an overflow into a waterway. Community leaders also play a part by tailoring sewer lateral inspection and/or repair programs that meet the needs of residents. Inspection and repair do have costs, but there are options for program type, repair techniques, and funding. Economies of scale in a community-wide program can also help keep costs reasonable. The companion report to this video is a great resource with specific information on I&I program formulation, types, funding, and other information to meet your community's needs. The report also features examples of Pennsylvania municipalities where ordinances led to successful I&I programs.
The solution can't come from one small community. From a community leader standpoint, we need to find a joint solution, and possibly through county, state, federal help, funding, put a plan together. So we need to make sure that all communities are addressing it and addressing it the same way.
At this point in time, the major problem is to raise public awareness and get people to buy into the fact that this is something that we need to correct. We need to correct this not just as an authority, but as an authority in cooperation with the municipalities and with the individual property owners. It needs to be done.
If we all work to repair these laterals, we're going to be treating a lot less clean water in our sewer system. So it's really as important as keeping your house painted and the lawn mowed. The responsibility of keeping that utility working in as best repair possible is really, really important to all of us.
It is. You want me up there?
Sure, if you'd like.
I'd actually prefer sitting.
Okay.
I'd like to just, is this on?
There you go.
Okay. I'd like to give you a brief history, at least my history through the City of Mayville utilities. I've been here, I was hired in 1982, and the treatment, what's that? Hold on to it. Sorry about that. The treatment plant was completed in 1983. Back then, we didn't have the nice SCADA system we have today that calls people out to come to work. Whenever there was an inch of rain, we beelined ourselves onto that treatment plant because we knew it was going to flood and we had to bypass the treatment plant to the river. It's not like that today. It now takes 5 inches of rain to do that, approximately. So, anyhow, we had this problem going on. 1984, I talked the Utility Commission into hiring a full-time inspector for 1 year to go out and inspect every building in town for cross connections. He did that. We found 185 cross connections in the city, and we got them all corrected. Not everybody was real happy with us, but it helped. It helped that we weren't flooding as much. And we continue to do the cross-connection inspections even today. People don't realize we do them, but every time we change your water meter, that individual does a cross-connection inspection. Do they miss things? Sure. Do we find cross-connections? I'd say with the wastewater, we probably find about 1 a year where we make the person connected in.
What's a cross-connection?
A cross-connection is where, say sewage gets into the water system, where it's connected, where it could get into the water system, or say clear water is connected somehow into the sanitary sewer system. They're not to go together. The sanitary sewer and the storm sewer are two complete separate systems, because otherwise you have to treat all that clear water. 1985, we began a rehab of the city sewer system in earnest. And not all the projects were driven by the wastewater utility. A lot of them were, but some of them were driven by the water utility and bad mains. Some of the projects were driven by the city in bad streets, curbs, gutters that need to be replaced. And we've been working at that, and we were going about every other year till right around 2000. Monies got tight, and we pushed them out to about once every 3 years, but we're still doing it. We have spent millions of dollars improving the sewer system and the water system in the city of Mayville. And it has helped. Like I said, it takes a good 5-inch rain now for us to have a problem. We still do have problems though. I had my office staff look at the water we sell, and actually they calculated out the amount of wastewater we sell for the last 3 years. I had them do it. We sell, how should I put this? Our flows treated are 53.6% clear water. Now when we're treating that clear water, you're paying for that. You're paying for the pumping. It has to be treated just as if it was sewage, and it's costing us a lot of money. And we get sewer system overloads at the time. We improved the system, the collection system, so that I don't think you see backups in homes. We used to have them a lot back in the 80s. And we've improved it. And you don't see too many of those anymore. Once in a while, yes, but not very often. We've put generators on our lift stations so that even if there's a power failure, you still have wastewater treatment facilities pumping to the treatment plant. The treatment plant is completely powered now. It didn't used to be, but it is now, where if there's a power outage, everything keeps running just as it always did. But like I said, there's still a problem. And the reason it's really come to the forefront is the DNR has put new regulations on the City of Mayville, not just the City of Mayville, but we're now having poundage discharge limits on suspended solids and phosphorus. We have to get our phosphorus down to right about 0.1 milligrams per liter. As flows pick up, the treatment plant does not work as efficiently. Numbers get worse instead of better. You'd think it'd be diluted, but it overloads the plant, and solids, phosphorus go out more than they should. And it's a multiplying factor where the pounds increase dramatically going out to the river. We need to get it down. We need to get these flows down. Upgrading that treatment plant probably will cost between $20 and $30 million. We don't want to do that. I don't think you want to do that. We get this down, we're never going to get rid of all the clear water, but if we could cut it in half, that treatment plant could last probably the rest of your life. I can't guarantee that. It all depends upon the growth of Mayville, everything else, but it could last a long, long time. And yes, there will have to be upgrades. Rules, regulations change, but this is the best way we could see to save the citizens of Mayville money. It may not seem like that to you, but it is. We chose to do, after lengthy discussion, we chose to do 100 homes a year, 100 buildings. I shouldn't say homes, because industries, commercial buildings are all included. 100 buildings a year. It'll take about 25 years to get this project done. And you said you had that?
Yep, February's flows are.
February's flows are up. Okay. Geez, I'm a lot longer now. This is our flows from the month of February this year. This year has been a dry year. That's February. The ground is frozen. This red line is our flow coming in each day. The bottom line is the precipitation. Okay, we're about 600,000 a day in February. Could I have the next? Here comes April. You can see we're getting a little more precipitation. What happens when the precipitation comes up? The flow comes up. That's 1.6 million gallons for 2 days in a row. The plant is designed to handle 1.29 million max. So you can see there's a problem. It slowly goes down, the rain picks up, and the flow picks up. It's a problem. We have to handle it somehow. And I think that's about all I have to say for right now.
September.
Oh, you would like to see September too? Okay.
Last month.
The last month. This is September. Last month. We had rain. Nothing major. I mean, 1.4 inches of rain. Flow picked up to about 800,000 gallons. It doesn't take much and that flow starts climbing. Yesterday we had 0.39 inches of rain. The flow picked up over 100,000 gallons that day. That should not be happening. I'm not supposed to answer questions, but go ahead.
I don't understand. Where you're from the sewer lateral leaking into the ground, correct?
The sewer laterals don't leak into the ground.
I mean, possibly a broken pipe with water going out into the...
Yeah, I think we need to answer this later. Let me get all the other speakers in. I think they'll help you understand even a little more.
Hello, my name is Bert Bushke and I'm the president of the Wastewater Commission. I've been on the commission for 8 years now. I'm the longest member on the commission, and we started talking about sewer laterals in May of 2013. Ron came to us and said, hey, we got a problem here, something needs to be done. So through a series, I think it's been on our agenda 27 times on the Wastewater Commission agenda. And the Wastewater Commission put together this ordinance with a lot of help from a lot of different people. I think the video tells the best, but we put together the ordinance. It was passed through the commission, 7-member commission unanimously, and then take it to the council. The council ultimately passed it there. So this is what we feel needs to be done to solve the problem. Like I said, Ron came to us and said, we got a problem, we need to do something. I think from an environmental standpoint alone, this makes sense. Everybody knows where the river flows after it goes into here, Horicon Marsh. We need to do something to protect our environment. A lot of people along the way are doing it, and I think we need to do our part to protect the environment and also to increase the longevity of our plant. It took a long time. Ron kind of had to beat this into me too, that the flow rates are a direct correlation to the amount of phosphorus that we put into the river. And that was a big point in this whole lateral discussion, was the DNR and are coming down with their phosphorus limits. And that doesn't come from the DNR, that's EPA regulations are cracking down all over the country with phosphorus. So it's a direct correlation between the gallons of water that go through the treatment plant and the amount of phosphorus going into the river. And that just gets back to the environmental point. I think we need to be good stewards of the environment, and I think that the Wastewater Commission has done its due diligence in putting together a plan that we feel will somewhat alleviate the problem, and both environmentally and make our plant last longer. That's our hope. We're all taxpayers, just like you are. We all pay sewage rates. We don't like to see them go up any more than you do, but this is what we came up with, and it was passed by the council. Yeah, I guess that's all I got to say.
Thanks, Bert. Joe?
I'll stand up. Can you guys hear me okay if I talk like this? Yeah. All right. My name's Joe DeYoung with MSA Professional Services. What you have kind of assembled here tonight is a bunch of people that have dealt with it in many different ways. So from your own staff and people that work with you on a daily basis, to myself, and then you have guys over there that have fixed more laterals than they probably want to admit. My role here is kind of as a city engineer, municipal engineer for a lot of communities within Wisconsin. So at MSA, one of the things we do is we provide consultant services. So what I was asked here to do is basically provide you input or guidance or answer any questions on what communities are doing without Wisconsin. Are you comparable? And yeah, to be honest with you, yes, you are, I want to say not unique. This I&I issue, the lateral issue, and how to deal with it effectively and use the most the biggest bang for your dollar and how to treat this is something that every community is dealing with. Some got more fortunate abilities than others, some have better conditions than others, but again, it's not something that's unique. So again, when we get into questions and answers and standpoints, my role and what I'm here for you today is actually to give you the opportunity to ask you what other communities do, what experience we have, so that you can go from that. So with that, give Tom a chance here, who also works for us, or MSA.
Thanks, Joe. I'm going to get out from behind the television so you can see my face if you want to. I'm Tom Fitzwilliams. Been working with the commission for a couple of years on the phosphorus issue. 2 years ago, the facility was issued a new permit. That's your kind of your rule book of how you run your treatment plant. That's a 5-year permit. In that new permit, there was a future new phosphorus limit, which is much more strict than what you have currently. Currently, your limit is 1 milligram per liter, which you can treat, and the staff can treat using conventional methods, adding chemical, you remove the phosphorus. The new limit will be much lower than that, as Ron mentioned, down to as low as 0.1, maybe 0.15 milligrams per liter. So it's a whole order of magnitude lower. High level of treatment would be required to meet that limit. The difference with the new limit is it's a mass-based limit. It's not a concentration-based limit. So the 1 milligram per liter is a concentration. The new limit will be mass-based, so it's measured in pounds per day. So, and how you calculate the pounds is a pretty simple calculation. It's concentration times daily flow rate equals, with a conversion factor, equals pounds. So, if your concentration goes up, the pounds go up. If the concentration stays the same and the flow goes up, the pounds go up, and vice versa is true. So it's a linear type relationship. So what we've been working with at the plant with Ron is trying to figure out how to remove phosphorus with alternate chemicals, higher dosages of chemicals, trying to avoid this major facility upgrade Ron alluded to that's in the multi-million-dollar range of cost. So the option for the city to comply with the new phosphorus rule would be treating it, putting in some sort of what they call tertiary treatment, treat that end of pipe so it's down below 0.1 milligrams per liter consistently, or try to control the amount of I in the system and reduce that flow so you can reduce that concentration. So that's generally what how that new limit works. It's much more strict, but you have options, and one of the options might be to reduce I. So I think we'll hold questions till the end, right?
Thank you. Mark.
Hello, everybody. I'm with the Village of Campbellsport. I'm here to basically give you some of the things that happened in Campbellsport. I've been in meetings like this. I see a lot of unhappy faces. Hey, I understand. Nobody wants to spend money, right? I come from a system that's about 1/3 of what Mayville's is. But we get into street projects, and our systems, water and sewer, were built in 1935 was the beginning. And our infrastructure is aging, failing, and we've got all kinds of different pipes. We had different contractors through the years do different techniques. Some are good, some are bad. So we got into a situation in 2004, 3 and 4, where some laterals were starting to fail. Our ordinance said the property owner was responsible for the entire lateral cost. So if your lateral failed, even out in the street, within right-of-way, it was at your expense. The village board at that time decided to come up with a schedule where we have a sewer lateral replacement fund. We charge $5 per quarter for every meter, water meter in our system, approximately 840 meters. We build a fund, we've been building a fund, and through the years we've spent money. We've done, Mayville is talking about doing 100 a year. We do it when we do a street reconstruction project. That's how we've done it in the past. We don't televise laterals like some communities. They'll go in and televise every lateral. We don't do that. If we see that it's anything but a PVC lateral, it gets pipe burst is what we've been doing. I've been called everything under the sun at times on the street for doing these projects. But one story I'd like to share with you. I had a gentleman that was not happy with me at a public meeting, in fact, 2 of them, and he said his lateral was in fine shape. Him and his wife have lived in the house for 40+ years, never had a problem. It was decided that everybody on that street was replacing their sewer lateral. When we got to his, he was sitting outside on his bench like he does most summer days, watching the crew work, and we got down to his lateral, started digging, and it was basically a septic system in the road right-of-way. And I had him come over, and he said to me, you know, so is it as bad as you thought? And I said, no, it's not. And he said, huh, Mr. Big Shot, there you go. I said, come and take a look at it. He looked at it, and he said he couldn't believe how bad it was, and that he was, basically, his pipe wasn't even hooked up anymore. All it was doing was seeping through an old pipe. So I understand your frustrations with somewhat of a mandate, if you will, to do this, but the other thing you have to look at is resale value on your properties. When you go to sell your properties, inspections are done. You have to fill out paperwork. Have you had any problem with the sewer? Anything like that? If you have to answer it, I hope, honestly. If you can say that the sewer lateral has been replaced and all the documentation is there, I believe it's a selling point for your property down the road. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chad, I guess.
My name is Chad Gunther. I work for Town and Country the last 17 years. I've been the superintendent for the last 5 years. I've replaced a lot of laterals in my life, way too many that I won't even want to admit. Good ones, bad ones. For instance, like Mark says, I had a guy once, same thing, dug up his lateral, never even made it to the main. We were 25 feet away. It broke, it was collapsed. I couldn't even, guys got it a hole, they couldn't even take it. We couldn't do it. You had that machine dig it all out, then go down the hole because it stunk so bad. I can't remember the road, but I remember it's up by Casey's. We got called right from Ron, it was on 2 days before Christmas. Sewer backed up. We go up there, he dug it open, got down, here was a drop, 17 feet deep, straight down. I looked down, I says, Mike, this is not gonna work. He says, why? It's pumped full of tree roots. So I literally had to take a 6-inch pipe, it was an 8-inch drop, and jam it down, sharpen it, and jam it to cut the tree roots off. And we made a corkscrew from the shop, and I screwed it down. We pulled out 7 feet of tree roots that weaved through the clay lines that plugged up the system. The clay pipe do leak. All of them do. If they leak in, and if it's dry, like they say, they're gonna leak out. It's gonna contaminate the soil. After a while, it eats the pipe away. Sooner or later, you might not think of it, it's gonna collapse, it's gonna back up in your basement. And for instance, I just talked Scott, just looked at a guy over in Horicon. He had his friends come up from Texas, sleeping in the basement. Lateral's fine, he says, they don't wanna do nothing about it. What happened? Tree roots got in there, plugs up, it's done. They were sleeping, backed up, 4 inches of sewage in the bottom of their basement. I don't know about you guys, but I really don't want to invite people over when you got a backup in your basement. You can get them televised, but televising, like Mark says, if you're gonna do them, you can find out which ones are bad and which ones are good. There are, once in a great while, you might have one good one out of 1 million, but very often I've never seen that 1 million yet because it's bad. So on that note.
I'm Pat Wunsch with Musson Brothers. We're a road contractor. You've probably seen us around the area. We do a lot of highway work. We do open cut sewer and water, and 6 years ago, we entered into the trenchless reconstruction of sewer laterals. Currently, we're in 7 states. The example with Delaware, we just finished the 900 house project out in Delaware. Delaware, they started a program that was called the Brandywine 1000, and it started 10 years ago. They've done over 10,000 houses. They've seen a 35% reduction in the water going into their treatment plant. They've had nothing but a positive. They haven't had to add on their treatment plants. And they got the program set up to go another 10 years. Their infrastructure's older out there, but our infrastructure's aging here. You've all read about the overflows in Milwaukee. Being based in Milwaukee with one of our offices, we've been very fortunate. We've done over 6,000 houses in MMSD so far. That program just got approved. It's going to go through 2050 now. We all read about the tunnels filling up, the overflows. They're seeing on the Milwaukee projects, the highest we've seen was a 40% reduction by doing the laterals. It's been averaging about 30%. So I travel all over the United States. I end up at meetings like this all the time. I've been in communities that have been 1,000 people. You think about it, it's not a very big community, but they're in a little bitty private treatment plant. The cost of them to updo that plant, nobody could afford it. They'd all be selling their houses. We're out in South Dakota. You'd think, oh, it isn't bad out there. They're 60-year-old houses. Systems are failing. They can't afford to put in treatment plants. Your program's very unique here from what I can see, what you got going, what you got proposed. It's very proactive. And like Ron said, at the end of the day, you're either going to pay now or you're going to pay later in a treatment plant. There's a prime example. If anybody has access to the internet, you can Google Naperville, Illinois. They started a program 10 years ago. Might even be 15 now. They were on the verge of needing a new treatment plant, and they put a lateral program in place along with some other sewer rehab to get the water out of the system. Long story short, they do about 150 houses a year. The population has increased over 200,000 people, and they've got the same treatment plant. So they spent a little to save a lot. The lateral lining we do is 100% trenchless. We do it from the main line, we do it robotically, and we do it all the way up into the house. The biggest impact we would have is if we put a clean out up in your yard, it would be a hole this big. We put it in a shrub, you never even know we've been there. Cure in place has its place. Sometimes it's more expensive. If you're doing a road project, it's quite obviously probably cheaper to dig it up, to be honest with you. The other thing you gotta look at trenchless, if your lateral's underneath the garage, someone built on it over the years, shrubs, decks, driveways, front porch, you might want to go trenchless, or you might want to go with the pipe bursting. I think the program that your community is proposing is you're being proactive by buying into this. I can't tell you enough communities that I run into that they do it when it's too late, and they've already spent money, and they're spending more money when they could have been on the cutting edge like you guys are, and take care of it now, a little bit at a time. So, that's pretty much all I've got to say. If anybody has any questions afterwards, and I do have some brochures.
I'm Scott Lemers. I do the pipe bursting, which is another method of trenchless sewer replacement. Been doing it for 10 years now. Done probably average about 100 homes a year, maybe a little more. So we got it done pat. The difference from our system versus their system is we have to physically, at each end of the pipe we're bursting, we have to physically get down there and make the connection. If you're doing a sewer project and they're digging the road up, that end's already open. Typically on the other end, we work from inside the house, break the basement floor open, pull a new pipe through, reconnect the plumbing, and pour the basement floor back in. Some disadvantages with that, if you have a finished basement, sometimes that restoration of flooring in that can make it a little bit more expensive than having having it lined, so. Yeah, it's as simple as that, so I guess, we'll, whatever you want to do for questions.
Okay, sure, we can open up for questions now. I'm sure many of you have, so, yes, sir.
Okay, I've got several questions. Item B, what would be the average cost for televise? You're saying you're gonna televise everybody's lateral. What would be the average cost for that? Is it per foot? Is it per job? Is it for the whole flat rate for the whole city?
It's determined what we have to do. I mean, every house is different. It's just like when you bid, I cannot physically give everybody one lump sum for a house. Because if you have a house that's got your sewer lateral just for the televising, I have to come in the house. If I have to, you know, if I can't get in the house, I have to dig down somehow physically I gotta get through to get down to look through the lateral for the televising. And as long as you were speaking in that, every sewer lateral, if I have to dig, is a different price. It's not, I can't physically say, okay, it's gonna cost you $2. This guy over here could say, yours is gonna cost $5,000 because yours is in the grass, his has got blacktop, he's got concrete, it's totally different. Landscaping, everything.
Clear access in the house, you spin that cap off, you can see the drain or the sewer line, straight shot out to the street, approximately 35 feet maybe.
If you're looking at just televising it, cleaning, just seeing what it is, we've done it with a lot of road reconstruction projects where you're talking 150, 200 bucks.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna, and that's just
right.
Trying to give you an idea.
Along the same lines, item number L, replacing the lateral from the road up to the house, again approximately 35, 40 feet. What would be my option for excavation? What would be my option to, is it like a filler, or what the two gentlemen on the end, be your options?
First I'll jump back 1 minute to the lateral televising. If the city would let a contractor, say if there was a full block or multiple blocks that would say, okay, we're gonna televise, you could probably get them done for $150 to $200 per lateral. Along with that would come what they call GIS mapping, where they could actually locate the lateral at 3 points, which could save you money down the road if you're gonna do another technology. It would locate it at the main line connection, and it would locate it probably at the back of the sidewalk and another one at the house. And some people say, why do you want to do 3 points? It may sound crazy, but people didn't always lay laterals in a straight line. So if you're sitting at the street and you know where it is in the street, that doesn't mean it goes straight to your house. There's been a lot of things changed over the years. We run into neighborhoods where they were well and septic. Along comes sewer and water, and they hook in. Guess what? The septic system was in the back of the house. So sewer lateral doesn't go straight. It'll go, and sometimes it'll make a curve around the house. So the televising can be very expensive, or it can be very economical, depending upon how many you do. Okay. Next question: if you're going to do a street reconstruct, and they're going to redo the main, and they're going to do the lateral to the right-of-way, it's a pretty good bang for your buck.
The street was done in the mid-90s.
Okay. So if your lateral is good at the property line, and say they're doing a project like that, they can either leave clean out there that would allow lateral lining all the way to the house without opening a hole, or at that point they could set up a bursting project back to the house. And again, it all comes down to logistics of the lay of the land. I mean, if you got a yard, there's not a shrub in the way, there's nothing in the way, it'd be a lot cheaper to open cut than if you had driveway or stairways or
There's yard,
decks, you know.
yard from the clean out all the way out to the street.
So I don't know if I answered your question. There is variables.
I'm looking, you know, I mean, can you off the top of your head tell me average, say 40 feet, and you're gonna put this liner in?
An average within the street right away, okay, if you just did 30 feet, 5 years ago it was $4,800. Right now, we do an annual contract in Rockford, Illinois, that does a minimum of 150 houses a year, just like you're doing here. They're down to 2,100 hours a house, trenchless. That's no holes opened up or anything.
Is that something city's considering?
Well, I would say.
Or is it gonna be up to every individual homeowner to pick?
We are considering all manners. We had these people come in and talk to us. They've all been here before to talk to us. That's why we invited them all back to talk to you. All these options are open.
The city will be looking, as stated in the video, when you do economies of scale, the more jobs you get, the cheaper that cost becomes.
Okay.
So,
and then my final question, under M, we're talking about doing 100 lateral inspections a year until everything's completed.
correct.
I live on a street that the homes vary in age. The home I live in was built in 1953. The one next to me was built in 1918. Does that have a factor on what streets, and I mean, how are you going to determine which streets for the laterals are going to be done in which order, or is it going to be a hodgepodge across the city based upon the estimated age of the home?
No, that's a great question. First of all, the easy part of that would be, obviously, when we're doing street reconstruction with utilities, you know, replacing the mains, those homes will be identified that year as being part of the project. Now, if Ron has hung a map on the side there, the highlighted areas are the mains that have been replaced, correct, Ron?
Yes,
Okay.
all the PVC mains.
Are all the in blue there, that's all plastic already. The remaining streets have not been done. So basically, like what we're doing in 2016, Clark Street, Lincoln Lane, I believe it's 66 around homes, properties.
I think there were 88.
Okay, 88.
Would you have an idea of
So-
when Jansen was done in, I'm gonna say, oh gosh.
Do I
No, it
know
would
what
be-
your lateral was?
I'm trying.
Yeah.
I'm trying to answer the question.
What
Okay.
what the main was, because it had to have been done, I'm gonna say between 2001 and 2005, the street was done, because Mom passed away and Dad was still living, so.
Okay. What?
Any idea,
The-
Jansen, what the main is?
The main is now PVC.
Okay.
Right. And when all the mains were replaced, just so everybody understands this too, is that the road right-of-way was also replaced, the lateral, that is also the responsibility of the homeowners, but that was replaced to the curb stop, okay? And that practice will continue. Now, if you have an older home and you have a major failure of your lateral, and it's somewhere in the right-of-way, obviously, let's say it happens tomorrow, you would be responsible for that portion, because that's how our ordinance reads right now. And it's been that way for a long, long time. But to get back to your question, the commission will sit down and develop, either a 5, 7, 10-year plan of what, the next 100 and the next 100 after that. So people have time to, get ready for this. And I understand the people on Clark Street, this is happening very quickly for you all. And, but going forward, so people have some, heads up of what's coming down the road, they will be delivering, or developing a plan, excuse me, and then we'll be notifying the public of that.
The reason we included Barwick Avenue and Birchard, we did those streets back in 1994, and I'm sure some of the people that live there know that. The last 3 years, we moved the lift station to the other side of the river. I got in a big argument with the engineers because he wanted to put in a certain size pump. I made him put in a much larger pump because the flows there get so high, and it would back into homes. It doesn't do that anymore. That's because I oversized the pump. I mean, that's not the answer. The answer is to get that water out of there. And their flows in the past 3 years, the low flow was 6,600 gallons in a day in the middle of winter. The peak flow was 259,000 gallons in a day. And that is for 30 homes. That's crazy.
And that brings up another point that we really haven't touched on tonight. We have how many lift stations in the city?
5.
We have 5 lift stations in the city. Not only are we overtaxing our plant, we're overtaxing those lift stations. We have to build them with bigger pumps. We have to use more electricity to run those pumps. Some of the lift stations have multiple pumps in them. When the flow rises to a certain point, the next pump kicks in. So, and these pumps are not cheap to replace when they go. I know I've seen the bills, so that's just another aspect. Yes, Mr. Boss.
Ron, you're talking about all this flow on the sewage plant being overloaded
Yes.
right now and everything. Is Kikoski even hooked up yet?
No.
Then why would you want them?
They are going to be, because the more people that are paying utility bills, the cheaper it is for everybody. They will be,
went up then?
they will be 3 to 5% of our flow, and they will pay for every gallon they discharge. Not like you do off your water meter. Every gallon. So if they have clear water coming in, they're paying for it.
Yeah, well, and then you're talking about not to process clear water, but you're gonna get a lot of clear water from them because their drains are all hooked up from the east spouts for clear water.
Actually, you're wrong, because they've been working at clearing it all up. They know that this is gonna cost them more money to put more water in. They've been working at cleaning up their problem.
Okay, and where does the phosphor all come? From the homes?
Phosphorus comes from human waste, comes from factories,
But where does the majority of it come from?
the factories.
The caddy factory.
Not the canning factory, just the factories in general.
So then why are you coming after the homeowners?
It's not their fault, but it's just part of processing.
Why are you coming after the homeowners that you bought the phosphorus?
Well, there is phosphorus in human waste.
Not that much.
Oh, and cleaning supplies, laundry detergent, everything.
You know, it was stated before too, that the formula that is going to be used to determine phosphorus levels is changing. And part of that change is the flows. And, you know, we need to get control of these flows. We're paying for every gallon that goes through that plant, whether it's water that comes out of your toilet, your bathtub, your sink, your dishwasher, your washing machine, your leaking lateral. We're paying for it all. It doesn't matter. They don't separate it out. Yes.
Okay, I have a question. I hear at this meeting, and I'm kind of thinking about the environment and stuff. I can buy into this because what you guys are saying. The city's got to save some money, and I think that's fine. But I've got a lot of questions on how we as individuals get the most bang for our buck. Now, for Chad, you do all the excavation and come in there. For your cost, how do you get underneath the house? If, let's say, that sewage pipe goes all the way to the back end, you have to dig out the basement? Is that gonna cost more, or you just go up to the house?
No, we'll go up into the house, and then we'll have to get, if the sewer goes all the way through to the other side of the house, we'll have to get for instance, I probably would get Scott just to go from one end to the other.
So you may have to combine it as I couldn't just go to you, I'd have to combine it and maybe get another guy. And so those costs are the concern. Everybody has their own individual problem, and what we need is information. What is it gonna cost us to do this? Because very few of us probably have PVC going as laterals.
Right.
I know I got PVC going down into my floors, but what's under there, I doubt if it's PVC.
Right.
That information we're going to need.
Well, I physically can't, I can go out to your house, I can give you a price, but if I know that, like, for instance, let's say we get Clark Street, and I know that I'm gonna go there, it's gonna be cheaper for me to go to there when I have that big machine sitting there to reach up to the house, unless I have, that's different, it's gonna be cheaper if we do it that, we're there. But if I have to come to your house individually and just do your lateral, then I go to the next guy's house, but it depends, like, for instance, are there shrubs? Is there landscaping?
Right.
Is there sidewalk we gotta rip out? is there a front porch? You know, if I gotta dig underneath the front porch and you accept me, I have physically got to trench by hand and then trench to get underneath there. So it's a cost. Everything is, it's a cost factor, but everybody's house is different.
Yeah, and it saved $200 if I wait, instead of getting to try to take a TV camera and see what's down there, you probably guess already, they're gonna tear up the street anyway. So as soon as we find out what's in there, okay, hey, I don't care if it's non-compliant, why take pictures of it? I'll save $200 and wait for them to do it. According to the ordinance, I have 90 days in order to get it done, or is that just in order to set it up to get it done because the street is going together? How does that work?
I would say that if you had it set up to be done, that nobody would do anything about it. They would be acceptable with that.
Okay, that's.
I'm going to add to this.
The ordinance reads though.
I understand
Yeah.
that.
Well, that's why we went
But
here.
there are other
This ordinance
ordinances
has got a
where-
lot of things in it that shouldn't be in there.
Again, just to address the question, you're looking for what's your best bang for the dollar and some of the things I've referred to before. The economy of scale, it's been mentioned a couple times, and just so you're aware of it, if you have an opportunity with a street reconstruction or a block that's taking care of this, or a certain thing, no matter what, that is gonna be your best opportunity to get it done at the most reasonable price.
Okay.
Do it individually, wait till it breaks, and I guarantee you the cost is triple to quadruple more getting a special trip and everything like that. So just to add to that point, if you ever got an opportunity where you're doing it with a group, we see that very commonly. The other thing we see done, if you want to see the best alternatives when you're looking at these different options, is when you're putting your bid package together, is having the alternatives. Consider one versus the other, where we've gone into communities and looked at the whole area and said, okay, we're gonna bid it out with open cut, we're gonna bid it out with the slip lining and the other options so that it can be determined which one worked out best at the time so that you can take care of this. So just a couple of things that you're mentioning here, if you're really looking at it, don't pass, again, you're against it or for it, if it's gonna happen, don't pass up opportunities to do it with a group so that you can get that better price.
Yes.
And my last question was basically gonna go to Ron. Now, they're gonna dig up Clark Street and they're gonna put the new sewer line in. The question that I have on there, on the 300 and 400 block of North Clark, that end of there is no storm sewer. It doesn't make a whole lot of difference to me because I'm on the hill, all the water, I don't have to worry about it, I'm pretty high and dry. But all that water in North Clark has a tendency to run down to Mary Street, which is about a block away. My concerns are for the lockers and people I know on that street, I see them flooded out. If you're putting in this sewer, you got anybody even mention that maybe it might not be a bad idea to extend the storm sewer from the church down there?
There's going to be a meeting on the 2016 project before the end of the year. Don Neitzel's the engineer for the project, and he said all the homeowners from that project will be invited.
When is that again?
I don't have a date.
It's gonna be the
Probably
end of November or early December, Don said the other night. And
As long as
everybody,
the road is dug up, I just thought it might be more bang for the buck again.
I actually have the plans here.
everybody will get another letter stating, the time and place of the meeting.
And
Sure.
looking at the plans, there are storm sewers in here.
Ah, thank you. It's not for me, but for everybody across the street.
With properties that aren't done right away, and the cost factor is gonna be going higher and higher from year to year, like everything else, wages or insurance and all that.
You'd be,
How is that cost is gonna be kept down for those that have it done right away compared to somebody that has it done 6 years, 7 years later?
excellent question, and I think,
I've seen prices go down in our industry, and on the open cut end, they've been level for 15 years.
as more and more communities are going to this, obviously there's gonna be more and more contractors getting into this business. And obviously there's gonna be more competition and prices will either level or possibly even go down, so, yes.
This is also brought up at a time where our school district is trying to renovate and redo our high school. How can property owners cope with that? I realize the school district has nothing to do with city council, but at the same time, it's all coming from the homeowners or taxpayer, property owners here in town. I know it hasn't gone through yet, but all of a sudden, your street comes up and the referendum gets passed through at the school district. How is the homeowner supposed to cope with that?
Well, I guess I would answer that question with, the school system obviously came up with their plan, and it was about a $20 million plan, okay? And that was figured out to about $300 per homeowner in Mayville, okay? If we went out and if we didn't do this, and our plant needs to be replaced in, let's say, 15 years, instead of 25 or 30 years, maybe even more than that, you're looking at more than $450 a year for 20 years to pay off that bond. So what's cheaper? The $2,500 bill or the $9,000 bill over 20 years? That would be my argument back.
I have one question. What has been the average cost of this?
What's the average cost of repair?
Yeah.
It depends. It varies from home to home. I've called around and asked. I always use the amount of $3,000. I've heard lower than that. I've heard higher than that, and it all depends what type of repair that you get. Economies of scale. If we come together and get a price. That's what we are going to do. We're gonna go out and look for contractors that are willing to bid on this work. They know that Mayville is going into this. We're gonna be doing 100 homes a year for probably 15 to 20 years. So if you're a contractor, do you wanna be in on that? Contractors? Probably, right? So we're gonna get a good price.
I did talk to different people, and I did get some pictures with this, because I thought this was very, very important.
Yes.
And the majority of them said, Marge, where can we get this money from? Does it have anything here set up where people can get the monies to do this?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. I'm going to repeat Marge's question. Basically, it was, is there any way, for people that can't afford this to, if there's some help out there? We have been looking at that. We have talked to our financial advisor, and the problem is it's private property. And just like private property, it's very hard to either do a grant program or something like that. I know Campbellsport has mentioned there are some communities that do that. But there's also the other argument that you're going to get from the homeowners that have newer homes that paid a premium for that, the newer home, and they're going to say, is it fair that I paid a premium for my home with a plastic lateral to pay for somebody else's lateral? It would just be, and I know that's hard, and I know that's a hard concept for people to understand, because a lot of people don't even understand that how can my lateral be private? It's part of the collection system of the whole city. But when your home was built originally, your builder put that lateral in just like you put the roof on it. It's private property up to the, in our ordinance, it's actually up to the main. But getting back to the financial part, we sat down and we had a conversation with our financial people that we deal with, Ehlers. He said, basically, he's dealt with other cities that have enacted this type of ordinance and this type of program. And what he said was, between 60 and 65% of the people just take care of it themselves. The other 30%, they go out and take advantage of whatever municipality sets up for, and that's almost always a loan program. The city obviously can borrow money cheaper than the actual one of the citizens out there normally. So that's what we're looking at doing, whether it's 3, 5, 7-year program. It varies. It can actually go all the way out to 10 years to have it more affordable for people.
There are a lot of people who are on disability or on Social Security, they
Right.
want fixed incomes.
Absolutely.
And it's pretty difficult, because
It is.
they all are scared, they all want the guarantee. We know this is going to be really an important thing that's got to happen. I'm a widow, I live at home, I handle my budget, I kind of live, and we can pull this stuff out, and that's what a lot of them are really concerned about too.
Sure. Yep.
And it's understandable.
Yep. Yes.
When and where do you plan on starting the project?
I believe it's the road construction. They usually start in June.
May or June.
May or June?
I mean, we'll start on.
That's up to the contractor.
Right. Yes, sir. How about you first?
Can we hire whoever we want?
Absolutely. I wanted to mention that too. The city is not going to force you to use a certain contractor. If you have an uncle that lives in Middleton that has a mini excavator or whatever, and a nephew in Fond du Lac that's a licensed plumber, of course, and then you do it for $500 or whatever.
You need a licensed plumber.
Correct. You have to be a licensed plumber. Yep, because it will be inspected. And you have to have building permit, I'm sure. So. Yes, sir.
I have a house, I know it's got the cast iron in it. It was built 60 years ago, my dad built it. What's the purpose of doing the television if you already know the pipe is cast? Because my understanding is if it's cast iron, it's gonna get replaced.
That's
correct?
You
Yeah.
don't have to televise it. If you're going to replace it, you don't have to have it televised.
But if it's cast iron, it has to be replaced, is what you're saying?
That's what the ordinance says.
Yes.
But
And
then
that's,
okay, then what's life expectancy
okay,
of
okay.
these new products?
Okay, that's actually really a couple good questions. Let me answer the first one. Okay, this ordinance is passed. Okay, can it be amended? I'm sorry with this TV in the way. It can be amended. Okay, I think it couldn't. I think it can be better. I think if I built my home in 1980 and it has a cast iron pipe in it, and I televise it, and there's absolutely no sign of deterioration, no sign of leaking, no root intrusion, I think that homeowner should be able to come in front of the commission and appeal that and get it, whether it's a 10-year, pass on that, and then for the next inspection. That's me personally. I think it can be better, but, and it can be done by the council. It just has to be raised. Mr. Smith?
Yeah, mainly for Ron. Okay, it's over your head.
Yeah, thank you.
Ron, you mentioned that you've done, for the last 10 years, you replaced a lot of the old mains with plastic. And you replaced the laterals to the houses up to the lot line with plastic also. Now, apparently you hooked up to cast iron or clay at that time.
Yes.
Okay, now, the project for most of these people, a lot of these people, when they tear up the street, they know they're gonna be looking at their sewer. The people who've had their streets torn up in the past, but have these leaky laterals that you didn't inspect at that time, they have a different problem. Now there's no economy of scale for them because you're not gonna necessarily tear up the streets again to replace these plastic mains, so they have an individual problem. And some of that is down on Lincoln Lane and...
Actually, I asked Kunkel Engineering, who's doing that project next year, to put it in as an alternate to do this even on those streets. Okay, so they do have the economy of scale to be done.
But ordinarily, what is your plan for that? I mean, I can understand as we rebuild streets, we're gonna replace the main, you might find, the city has some of its own cross connections. You found some of those in the last 10 or 15 years yourself. The procedure, sure, they're gonna tear up my street. I know they're gonna look at my main, it's cast iron. The mayor threw an interesting thing out there that was never a part of this before. If it's working and it looks fine, that was never part of the equation before. It was always gonna be non-compliant. Well, there is such a thing as legal non-compliant. Before this, it was gonna be illegal non-compliant. So it sounds like this could be improved a little bit.
Well, that would have to be amendment to the...
Right. That, at least there's some thought about it. I'm more concerned with those streets that have already been torn up. And if they're part of this 100 homes a year, that's a lot more work to replace a lateral when you're not doing anything in the middle of the street and televising it and so forth and so on.
You're right, they have to dig a hole.
Yeah, that's a lot different than replacing it along Clark Street or one of these other projects.
I agree.
If you would have these and say they are plastic at the main, or at the property line. There can be a clean out installed with a vacuum truck, so it's 18-inch diameter hole. They can be lined in the house.
I
It's
understand
pretty
that.
economical.
That's the repair. How do you know it needs the repair unless the sewer, the lateral fails? I mean, nobody's gonna know it's failing unless you either put a camera through these new mains, or you're gonna have this inspection program, but I didn't think the inspection program was gonna be anywhere but in the problem areas. So if you had your sewer replaced, let's say on German Street, the main, I don't know where.
Okay, I live there.
Yes. So the main was done, the lateral for your house was done. to
My
the lot.
lateral is clay, I know it
Okay.
is.
So, but was it replaced to the lot line with plastic?
It was replaced about to the back edge of the sidewalk.
Okay, but it has, the front part of it has been turned into plastic.
But some of these companies, like Musson Brothers, they inspect the laterals from in the main. They have a camera that goes into the main.
Well, that's,
and
I'm
they
getting
can-
to my question. When, for example, would these houses on German Street be a part of a program to be replaced? Would there, I mean, your 100 homes a year, some of them are gonna be dug up along with the streets, but the other ones, what are you gonna do, for example, on German Street to see if those laterals that were connected to the plastic main, if those are failing also?
Well, there's two ways to test them. You can either put a camera in, or you can pressure test it.
I understand, but when is the plan to do those streets that already have plastic mains? If it seems to be working, is there a schedule for that? This is not.
No, there's not.
Not as of right now. I had started working on it to present to the commission, but I am nowhere near done.
Okay, so right now the project is for streets to be replaced and for those low problem areas that you've identified?
Yes, we're going to the worst areas first.
Right, thank you.
I'd still like to hear how is the expectancy, life expectancy on this product?
The CIPP project is a 50-year design life, which is an overkill. It's probably higher than that. CIPP came over from the UK, and it's been in the ground. They've dug up stuff that's been in the ground over there nearing 60 years, and they're not seeing any problems with it. And the only thing that's happened in 60 years is a product that's probably got 10 times better. The resins and the materials used to make it have improved. So when they write a spec and they say a 50-year design life, I think the design life on the plastic pipe is 50 years too, on an ASTM standard, which pretty much controls everything we buy from nuts and bolts to toilet paper. So 50-year design life. CIPP product, when it goes in the ground, the stuff we put in the ground is a 5-year installation warranty, 10 years on manufacture. This is our 9th year. I've never seen any failures. Like I say, the stuff that's been tested over in the UK is nearing past 50 years. We are currently doing a job that, people think PVC is the cure-all. We're doing a job in Menominee Falls, Wisconsin right now that's all PVC pipe. That's failed at the point where they made the connections from the property line to the homeowner. So don't think just because you got PVC all the time. Some of the stuff in the 70s has failed. Very limited amount, but it came down to the joints.
And that's why if your home is 10 years old or 110 years old, it's gonna get inspected in Mayville, okay? We're not just picking on the older homes. Everybody's gonna be part of this. Once your lateral is fixed, or repaired, replaced, the next time it'll be looked at is in 50 years. And that's probably, everybody in this room won't be here, so. It's literally good for your life.
When a person see a reduction in the water bill, or the sewer bill, I mean, you're paying for all this, to have this lateral change.
Right.
Are we gonna see a change in our water bills?
Ron? Okay, what was stated before is what we want to stay away from is that new million plant that we'll have to build if we don't do this.
You talk about the wastewater plant, and every 5 years, wastewater plants around the state get a new permit from the state. Every 5 years, they put something new in it, something new that we have to do, and improve the discharge to the river. And that's always gonna cost money.
Yeah, from experience, you're not looking at your bills going down, you're looking at trying to maintain it from going up as fast as it would be. So it's kind of like, what is your incline, what can you do to eliminate it? So it's not something where you see reduction, because you still have your same cost you have today. So you have to recover it, so you're still all paying that percentage of what the cost is of maintaining a treatment plant. So I wouldn't count on going it down, I'm just thinking you're trying to eliminate it from climbing like everybody else.
We've done a study of sewer rates across the state of Wisconsin for the last 20 years. And I was just presenting on this morning in Madison about the results of our study, and it's 3.1% per year on average in the last 20 years is the rate of increase of sewer prices on average across the state. It's sort of like inflation, 2.5% to 3% per year.
What do you consider the worst area? You said you would start in the worst area.
Actually, Barwick is the worst area.
What is it?
The Barwick lift station area is the worst.
Ron, if
From
they
the
do
numbers
Lincoln
I've seen.
Lane and Burchard Street and the water don't improve, then what are you gonna do?
Well,
And Barwick was done. Then
Barwick
where's
was,
the
Barwick
excuse gonna
was
come out
done, and Lincoln should have been done at that time too. If you were on the council, you remember they.
I wasn't on the council, the 10 Millionaire Club burned down, that's why it wasn't done.
Okay. Well, I have nothing to do with that, you know that. I did recommend that Lincoln Lane be done at that time. It wasn't, and it's going to be done now.
Yes, sir. So you said you'd need a licensed plumber to lay that pipe?
Correct.
Not on a private property, you don't.
You don't.
Not if you do it yourself on your own private property.
So you say at Barwick Avenue, we should have plastic pipe for the right of way?
Yes, you do.
So we basically that's a sidewalk, right?
Yeah, it's either,
Somewhere right
I'd have to
in
look at
between
the
sidewalk
plans.
and the curb.
I'd have to look at the plans, but it's at least between the sidewalk and the curb. On German Street by my house, I know it was behind the sidewalk, actually on the house side. That's how wide the road right
If you
away
get somebody that does sewer and water work, you could lay that pipe for it?
We got a website.
Without it being inspected?
is. No, I didn't say that.
Well, that's my ask
No, it has to be inspected
by the
by the building inspector.
building inspector?
I guess I've heard, just to say, our experience has been, it requires a licensed plumber to hook it up to a house, for whatever the connection reasons are, so
Chad would know.
Oh, I mean, it's like town and country certified.
you hook it up to the house, or do you have somewhere?
You just need a pipe layer's license, you don't need a,
I mean, could you,
yes,
you could hook it up from the street and the
yep,
house?
yep,
You have the guys with the license.
right.
Yes, ma'am.
If you had the camera run through, I had it done in April. So you said something about there'll be a committee and you can enter it at that time. When is that supposed to happen? I mean, I have a disc and everything with,
Right. A copy of that would have to go to the utility, and so, was it plastic or was it something else? Do you know? Okay, you don't know. Okay. The utility would be.
I had Bernhard do it.
Okay, the utility would be able to determine that, and then the utility could let you know the results.
So you're saying I could take that disc to them at any time?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And
Have
then
them take a
they'd be
look
able
at
to
it and
tell
see
me.
what they, see what they see.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
When was Lincoln Lane done, the main,
Lincoln Lane was not done.
what was done on Lincoln Lane in the spring? Up on the top of the hill by German?
There was a manhole buried there that we had to locate, and we dug up the manhole and brought it up. That's what was done.
Even down in the middle of Lincoln Lane, you have.
It was about, that sewer does not run all the way to the top of the hill. It only goes about 2/3 of the way up. And that, we had to get that manhole exposed. That's all we did.
Cause there's like a 2-by-3 foot hole in the ground.
Yeah.
And then there's up on the corner, they did some.
That had nothing to do with us, but, that hole in the middle of the road was us, because the engineer wanted the manhole exposed.
So are we going to be notified of when you're gonna start in your area, where, you know, are you gonna send us a letter, or?
The road construction?
Well,
Are
all
you
the
in
work we
Clark
have to
Street?
do, yeah.
You're-
I'm assuming when they start the road construction in front of your building, that's when you're gonna have to do all your stuff, right?
Yes, that'll be the most economical time to do it, yes.
But we will get a letter saying you're gonna come to that area, so we need to talk.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot more information before next June, May, whenever.
He said there's another meeting,
Yeah.
end of November, beginning of December.
Yeah,
We'll talk further to that.
So we're gonna send a notice for that meeting?
Yes.
If you're on Clark,
What?
if you're on Clark Street.
If you,
Yeah,
well,
I'm on
either
Clark Street, right on the corner.
Clark Street, Berkshire, Lincoln, and Barwick will all be sent a notice.
How far ahead of time are you gonna notify when one project is finished before you go to the next section or project is now?
Right, that's what the utility director and the commission will develop. It's like a 5-year plan, you know, a 10-year plan maybe. I don't know what they're
How far ahead
thinking.
of
I
time are you
wouldn't
gonna
speak
notify the
for
property owners after they decide?
them. Okay, say that one more time.
Okay, once they decide how the priorities are gonna be done around Mayville,
Yes.
what's the time period before they let the property owners know on that street or that area?
They should notify you the year prior to it being done.
Right, right.
Wow.
In that 5-year plan or whatever your plan, once that's developed, everybody will know about it. It'll be public information.
So are they gonna repave or redo Lincoln Lane this coming spring?
This coming construction period, yes.
In June, starting in June, you said?
Lincoln, yeah, yep,
So you're gonna redo
the whole thing,
new curb and gutter, all that,
all of it,
sidewalk,
yep,
all of it?
all of it,
At the same time, that homeowner gonna be responsible for the new sidewalk?
yes,
So on the bill, we have to pay for the new sidewalk for the new one?
correct. Just like any other road project would, yes.
When are they gonna put sidewalks all over town?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Cul-de-sacs in every place.
After streets don't have no sidewalks.
Streets.
No comment. I don't know, Ed. I
Hey,
don't know.
Ron, let me ask you, another area of concern is gonna be the old Gulf View subdivision. 'Cause it
Yes,
has clay mains
that's actually on my list.
and clay laterals, and all the joints are supposedly failing because of the groundwater.
3 years ago, we were called out there because of a sewer backup.
And then you have a lift station there that goes diagonally across to the
The river, and
plant.
it goes all the way to the
Right.
crossing
You've replaced it a
South
couple
German.
times because of all the water inflow. Now, I have a question. Does the plan include the streets and the mains? Like, before you look at this, that's one part. The second part is if it doesn't, when you do the mains and people's laterals, that's a really low area. And if there's any cross connections there, they're liable to reappear. What happens if you redo that project 2 or 3 years from now? And all of a sudden, and you still find out that the inflows from groundwater, I mean, all those houses have multiple sump pumps. And you find out that you're still, see it with a lift station, you can meter the amount of water you're pumping, so you know if you've solved the problem or not. In other words, you replace everything with plastic and the problem is still there, then the problem wasn't all what you thought it was. The problem is people
Well,
putting hoses into
there are people, and I will say this, that we go in, inspect, make them properly connect up their sump pumps, and they go back after we're gone and hook them back the other way again. I can't say that doesn't happen, because it does. That doesn't make it right, but it does
No,
happen.
but that's what my concern is, the areas, your plan originally, before this latest kerfuffle, was you were going to have a test program to see what the extent of these problems were.
That's what I recommended.
Yes, but you were overruled, I thought that was the best idea. You were overruled, and they're now doing it arbitrarily, which the mayor sounds like he's maybe rethinking some of that and able to make amendments to this. It sounds like it's still a work in progress, and I hope that you do reconsider some of these things that are concerning these people. I'm the only guy in town who's not connected to the darn sewer, but still.
Not true.
Well, my business is. My business is.
No, there are some homes that aren't connected to the
Oh,
sewer
there
system.
are a couple, okay. But
Wow.
I'm concerned for the rest of them, because they don't, there's no one answer for everybody, and it sounds like some of the questions, like if my sewer isn't broken, do I still have to fix it? Sounds like the mayor's willing to reconsider that. So,
I think it would, I honestly, in that review, I think it would at the very minimum have to be pressure tested to make sure that it doesn't leak.
That guy in the black coat and has his hand up.
Yes, sir.
So you see you're gonna, Warwick Avenue is a priority?
It is.
I'm almost sure I got clay tile. The house was built in the 40s.
I would bet 90% of those
What's the
homes.
time frame I got to repair that?
According to the ordinance, it's 90 days.
From today?
From the day that it's determined that it has to be done.
Yeah.
Well, if it's got clay tile, you know it's gonna have to be done according to the ordinance, right?
Yes.
So you really don't even pay to
The
camera it, right?
No.
You know,
But that's
I'm
why,
just looking at a
that's why we're
timeframe.
we're looking at, I asked for an alternate to be put into the contract, to be placed out on bids. And Barwig and Burchard would be included in that. Not just the streets that are being reconstructed, but those streets too, for a price of doing that. So that you have an option of taking our contractor. You don't have to, but you have that option. If
That
gets
would all
approved.
happen during the construction?
During the construction period.
Conceptually, how this is gonna work is when the road construction begins, that's when the clock starts on the whole 100 homes. Or, you know, the commission, you know,
So
can,
basically-
you're looking at like May 1st every year, basically, and then get it done through the summertime. You know.
Basically, it's gonna have to get done next year.
Correct. Correct. We're not gonna start the clock on January 1st.
Yeah.
Okay?
But the timeframe we got to do it.
Right.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I'm gonna skip to here. Just on televising for the guys over there, is any of your option dependent if there's a big clay, or rook balls and stuff like that? Would you have to have it cleaned? Would televising ahead of time eliminate or possibly create more options for which one they would select on what type of repair? Open cut, I know, yeah, it doesn't matter. Clay's clay, you can replace it. But for the tear in place and stuff, is it something where having it televised could dictate whether your option is available?
For me, no.
It won't matter?
Not for the pipe.
Our televising, like right now, are doing 160 homes in Brookfield scattered. Out of that 160, we're probably getting home access to 30 of them because the roots were so bad. So we shoot from the main up, and then we go inside the house and shoot back to the root.
So you have to televise regardless with your option?
Yeah, you want to know what you got, because you don't want to open up Pandora's box and say, yeah, I can do this, and all of a sudden find out when you clean the root out that the pipe's gone.
I guess I wanna know, yeah, they're saying, do we even have to televise? We know it's clay, we're gonna replace it, but it might dictate what they have to.
In one note, I would televise it because the two televisors now is that you can locate the head as you go out. So if your lateral's straight, if it's straight out, it's fine, but if it goes on an angle, it goes through, right across, and it goes through your driveway, that's a big determination of me. You know, 'cause I would televise and say, okay, here it is, straight out, I can, or does it come out at an angle? That's the way we gotta dig. If you don't want me to come out and dig out 2 holes and wreck out more, you know, we wanna make it the most efficient and most easiest, you know,
In other
direct,
words, you're gonna televise it more or less to market.
to market,
That helps
yes.
us, yeah. Even when we're planning projects, that televising and marketing also tells you the depth. You
Right.
know, how deep they have to go, so that's a huge benefit.
Do you need to televise your pipe bursting?
No.
We don't need to. A lot of
Because
times
that
we do
just,
for the
that just
locating
follows
part,
the line to the home.
but it depends upon the project.
You know, with the city ordinances here, every mayor group or elder group, they change. Now, when Gulfview was built, what was the city ordinance out at Gulfview?
I wasn't here then.
I know that because I can tell you what it was. The city had an ordinance that clay pipe had to be put in out there.
I know
They
that
made them put it in.
when I started here,
And now
they
you
were
come into a
putting clay
different
pipe
ordinance,
in
and now we
there.
gotta have plastic. 20 years from now, they come up with another type pipe, are they gonna come around and say everybody's gotta change it again?
Well, those mains in Gulfview that they made them put in, they were wrong when they did that. They're failing.
Yeah, but it was the city ordinance that they had to put it in that
Well,
time.
I can't do anything about that.
But you got two guys here, I see that one.
What would, over here,
You say that guy has a house that's built in 1877, it's all stone wall, basement walls. And stone. How would you dig underneath that without wrecking the foundation of the house?
Shovel?
You're gonna shovel.
Yep.
All right, how are you gonna fill the dirt back in around that pipe after you put it in?
Slurry it
So the
shut.
floor and the stone wall foundation doesn't move.
Slurry it shut.
Huh?
Slurry it shut.
With what?
Slurry. Concrete
It's
slurry.
like concrete
So it
and
fills the void in.
That's concrete.
It's like a sand slurry. It levels itself off, fills the whole void right in, and it won't settle.
It won't settle.
Nope.
It's concrete.
So the spot that you start at, so are you sticking to that area and then you're just gonna go down that road and do every house as it goes? Is that what, you're not gonna jump around?
Well, I always thought they do.
With the project that they're doing?
Yeah.
Generally, they go down one side of the road doing one side, then they move to the other side.
That's up to the contractor.
But it is up to the contractor.
Yep. Sir, other than that.
Do you know when they're gonna hook Kikoski to it? And, you know, we live down on Springbrook Court. I mean, last year they had 5 inches of rain and the treatment plant was just a disaster down there. Everything was flooded and, you know, what, 10 years ago we had 10 inches of rain and it was flooded in our basement. You know, what are they gonna do about that, you know? How soon are they gonna hook it up to Kikoski?
That's a good question. We don't even know that. Supposedly, it's next year.
By the end of next year.
So when it runs in my basement, then you guys don't cover none of that anyway.
So you're adding more sewer.
You keep putting more sewage in there, he said, you know, you have a 5-inch rain, everything's full. Well, what if you have a 5-inch rain plus a Kikoski, and it's in my basement, who's gonna take care of that?
Well, like Ron stated earlier, it's gonna be between a 3 and a 5% increase. Like when you see the chart, I don't know if it's up yet, you'll see a 40-50% increase. 3 to 5 isn't gonna move that graph that much.
Well, what was it, 10 years ago, they said it was a 100-year flood, you know, yeah, it was never gonna happen again. Well, last year you had 5 inches of rain and it flooded, you know.
Right.
Part of that problem last year, and some of my employees are sitting here, was that the farmer out by Wool Road Lift Station knocked the casting apart right next to the creek.
Oh.
And it flooded in there. We've since put bollards in there, filled the bollards with concrete. In fact, I think, Chad, you did that for us, so that it doesn't happen again. But that was part of our problem last year. You know, you don't go out in a farmer's field looking for him to hit your manhole.
And I did hear that. Yes, I did.
You heard him hit it?
No.
I had the same question, why is a manhole in a farm field? Anyway. Yes, sir.
2 weeks ago, they re-blacktopped Alley Street.
Yes.
Now you're gonna have to dig up that new blacktop and put new sewer in? That doesn't seem to make sense. How many streets are they gonna re-blacktop and dig it up to put new sewer in? Why don't they do it first?
Has
That's a
Alley
good
Street been
question.
done?
They did blacktop Alley Street. I had nothing to do with that.
Was
Alley Street done on the south end? No.
2 weeks ago, they re-blacktopped it. They dug it all
I
up and
saw that.
blacktopped it.
Right.
They should have put the new sewer in before that, not after.
I agree with you.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
The cart before the horse.
Yes.
This doesn't make sense. Oh, and another thing, when they dig these up, if people have a lead water line, are they gonna replace that at the same time?
I would recommend that you do it. We're not requiring it, but I would, my house has a lead line, and if we're going in there, I would like to see my house have,
Well, I would think that'd be mandatory.
it is not.
We'll just create a new ordinance for it and have it all done at one time.
I mean, lead is a health hazard. But our water is so hard that it won't see inside of the pipe, and it really doesn't seem to have an effect on it.
It'd be beneficial to consider it, because I can tell you that open cut, we get a lot better price than both together, don't go to the yards, that is for sure, so.
With the pipe bursting, we can also pull water.
Is Leroy gonna be
Yes.
with Kikoski?
Yes,
We're not just getting Kikoski.
we're getting Leroy, and that's in that 3 to 5%.
Okay, I live down on Barwick Avenue, and our pipe is clay, and I'm sure it needs to be replaced, because we've had tree roots for years. And I understand that replacing a sewer lateral is a homeowner's responsibility. It's a normal thing, comes with owning your own home, you have those expenses. So I'm fine with all of that. My only concern is, I really haven't gotten enough reassurance that the sump pump inflow that comes from people ignoring the rules is still continuing. And I feel like I'm willing to pay my fair share and have my lateral done because I think mine's probably leaking in and it's probably part of the problem. However, I also need to know that people who are not following the rules are having that issue dealt with. I want to know how the city's going to deal with that.
Well, I'm sorry, that's actually part of the ordinance. If you see, I don't have a copy in front of me here, but in fact, it's item A, cross-connection inspections shall be performed by the City of Mayville or their appointed representative.
But there's no meat in that. Ron said they inspect it, they go, not supposed to do that, they make them change it, they go home. Next week, people put it back the way they are because they don't want that water running across their yard, or they don't want the inconvenience of it freezing in the winter. You know, I get all that.
Right.
But then we need to do something so that we make sure that that is not adding to the problem. I'm hoping, you know, Ron's charts were very clear and showing, you know, the increase of rain. Those charts would show the same thing if everybody in town had their sump pump running into the system. So I'm just not seeing anything that gives me any reassurance that that is really being dealt with.
There's no way we can 100% guarantee that somebody doesn't do that. There's just no way. But we find about one a year, or even less than that has done that when we do these meter changes. And we make them do it, and we make them permanently pipe it outside. So if they go against that, it will be seen the next time we're in there.
Currently, that is an ordinance violation. Can we fine people for doing that? Absolutely. Have we not in the past? Probably not. Can we do that in the future? Absolutely. Yes.
My house does not have a sump. What is the regulation for those that do have a sump? Where are they supposed to?
Outside on your yard. Yep. Mr. Belk.
But doesn't that flow into a creek and then that goes into the river too?
Yeah, that's all right.
Why is that right? You still got phosphorus.
No, that's clear water. That's not the same.
It's rainwater.
People put fertilizer in their yard, weed killer,
Well, most fertilizers today have no phosphorus in them. You're not treating it.
You don't have to worry about that. Typically, the city in the past has always stuffed the new sewer main laterals to the back of the sidewalk. On these new projects that are coming up next year, is the city still gonna do that at their expense, or is the property owners gonna have to always do the maintenance?
That's being done at utility expense.
That's letter I.
Yep. That has been the policy in the past, and that will be the policy going forward.
But that's when you redo the road, correct?
Correct.
But what if you pick out a homeowner that has to do it before you redo the road, and he has to go all the way out the road?
All of the main and sewer laterals to the curb, those are gonna be identified first. So as we go along, again, this is a 15 to 20 year project. It's gonna take a long time.
You're gonna try and do the ones that already have been.
Yes.
And ones that are in street projects for that year. North Main, South Main?
Huge ground hacking, sidewalks, gutter. Were those properties done?
To the house? No.
Why?
It was not an ordinance at the time. We did everything, we did everything within the road right away at that time, the way the ordinance read.
Yes, sir.
The laterals start.
It didn't say that. It's outside the road right away that would have to be done. And it's not going to be done right away, that's not what I mean.
I'm sorry. Can we hold it down a second? We have a question over here.
Where does the lateral stop? When it enters the dwelling, or at the edge of the building?
Anybody want to answer that over here?
They're coming into the building.
Where is the lateral then?
Well, I mean, if you got cast iron pipe coming down and running under your concrete floor, but you got a clean out in front of the house, is running a new lateral to that acceptable? Or you gotta tear up the floor and
It
get
is.
the cast iron pipe under the floor? Or do you?
It is in Campbellsport. If you'd run to the clean out inside the basement wall, that's, we've had Scott do that. That would be the end of the lateral.
I don't know what the rule is. Ron, do you know what your rule is? Are you running, where do you consider, how far are you running these homeowners to the lateral? To the front of the house, to inside the house?
A minimum to the house, but if you do that, I would think, now, this hasn't been made clear, but I would think they'd want to see what's under the rest before they say, that's all you have to do, you know what I'm saying?
And I think it depends.
To
on
make
the
sure
type
that
of repair,
drain
correct?
tiles aren't tied into it somewhere along the line.
When will you have a definite answer?
That would be a piece of camera.
That would
Be just putting a camera in it, in that part of it. If you just want to go into your wall, then just televise the rest of it. And we just be shoving it down the clean out, going through it to make sure that there's not a problem before you finish it off.
Mr. Tellner?
When you go out for bids and it's for 100 homes, will you have all the laterals televised first so we get an accurate bid of the road projects so they know what they gotta do and what the other homes that aren't, roads aren't being done at? So we can get a good competitive price? Or how are the contractors bid on the 100 homes a year?
I haven't seen what the engineer is doing yet.
The one I'm doing this next year is we're actually gonna televise it before we decide what to do. We're getting bids on all the alternatives, so the decision will be made once we're out there televising right when we're doing the project. So we go out there and we find out we got a open cut, we got plenty of open cut going on. If it's gonna be the other ones, it's gonna have the alternatives so that we can decide. Some of them we can route and seal as the camera's going through, so there's just depending on what we find out.
So will the homeowner have to pay for the camera first and then, you know what I'm getting at?
I think, yes.
But it, you know, it'd be the price of 100 homes.
Right.
We'd have them, and Husson Brothers televises from inside the main, so they wouldn't even have to go into your house.
How much does one of them cameras cost?
Our truck, probably about 260,000.
Yeah.
260,000.
How come the plumbers get them then, they're cheaper than that?
That's the truck coming from the main. His camera's probably about 10, 12.
10 grand.
10,000.
Then why don't the city buy one? And do it?
Because
why?
I'm answering your question. Because it has been stated by the utility that they don't have the man hours to do it. They would have to hire somebody new, and that it costs money. Employees cost money.
And a bigger part of that is that that's private property, so if the camera would get hung up in that pipe, then we would be responsible to dig it up. Whereas in town and country, the camera gets caught in that pipe, they're responsible to dig it up.
I don't go over, that don't go over. How many times are you gonna get caught?
It's happened.
I've never put one down.
Yeah, okay. I think the city should buy a camera and then go out and do it, so they know exactly what the road cost is gonna be.
It's been discussed.
And then you can come on the street where it's gonna be done and ask the property owners if you can go in their basement, open up the sewer line and put the line through. Out to the main.
It's been discussed, Al. And,
Well,
they decided to go.
actually, now, when are you gonna have a meeting on tweaking this ordinance here?
Well, that's up to individual aldermen to bring that forward.
If the basement has multiple drains and it goes into the sewer, are those drains gonna have to be looked at?
Floor drains?
Floor drains.
If there's floor drains, if they go into the sewer lateral, they're gonna have to be inspected too?
Are we going through your entire basement inspecting? No.
So if the floor drains got clay.
The floor drains go to the sanitary sewer.
What if the floor,
I have an old house,
And you,
I don't know what type of pipes or what they use.
I have an old house too. Mine was cast iron underneath. But it did switch over to clay as it went through fall. Actually, I had problems. I had to cut my basement floor out and replace that with plastic because and the reason we put iron in there is because there's hydrogen sulfide in sewage. And it erodes that pipe from the inside out. And that's what happened to my pipe, and it all had to be replaced.
I was just curious.
I would suggest if we're doing the one, you think about doing the other.
And that's the problem with cast iron, it actually, it erodes from the inside out. There was a question, yes, sir.
So you're saying on Clark Street,
Yes,
are we cameraing everything or
that's up to the homeowner.
the homeowners?
Yep.
Why would you even wanna camera it if you know you're gonna do the mains and you're gonna do all the laterals?
Because of location, that can
Pardon?
determine, on an open cut, it can determine location, the cost of digging. Because it doesn't necessarily go straight, it could go underneath the driveway, it could come through the garage. So the televising is a crucial part of it, but if you're gonna have it televised, you wanna designate, you want at least 3 points located. The main, back a curb, and something close to the house. That'll tell you if it went straight or if it's got a bend in it.
Usually we usually do it every couple of feet, like 3-4 feet, because a clay, it could go like this. You know, I've never seen a straight clay tile yet.
Ground ships underneath.
Yeah.
The cost of televising, you might save just on the information given to those contractors to be able to come in and do it efficiently. I don't care if it's restoration or finding it or depth. It probably is money spent, because overall, and again, maybe not everyone, but 9 out of 10 might benefit from it just from the information they get.
Thank you for taking the time to watch our presentation on I&I in the City of Mayville. As you can see, it is a big problem, but it is a problem that we can solve if we all work together. Please check back on our website, mayvillecity.com, and click on the frequently asked question portion to see new and updated information as it becomes available. Thank you.